Hey, welcome to Coffee with Ryan. I'll leave the hat off. It's fine. I think my hair looks decent, I guess. It's work from home, so it is what it is, right? So hey everybody, thanks for jumping on. As you guys know, um, I've been traveling. See, there's some background music. Okay, it's like an intro, maybe. Okay, awesome. Well, as you know, or you may know, I've been traveling internationally for quite a bit. And so I'm just now back in my home, which I'm pretty happy about. I've been back for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, and it's been pretty great. You know what? Hat's coming back on because I'm not happy about the hair at the moment. It's too early. Um, yeah, as I was traveling, I visited first London for the serverless architecture summit or event, and that was pretty good. It was okay. Not much that I kind of want to get into on Coffee with Ryan there, but I was able to meet Sam from our team in person and also Vincenzo. Sam is based out of London. Vincenzo is based out of Italy, and really amazing people. So if you haven't interacted with them, definitely do so. Following being in London, I went to Italy and went to Milan. Milan's super cool. Very interesting place. Vincenzo is sort of our local, serverless guru guide, I guess, when it comes to Italy, or maybe even every European city. I'm not sure how deep the history there runs, but specifically in Milan, which is what I thought was like the most interesting, is they had canals that went through the entire city when they were putting together the cathedral. And Vincenzo was talking through how they had to do this because the stone they didn't have inside of the city limits, and so they had to bring it in. The interesting part, which I didn't know, is that Leonardo da Vinci actually did all of the city planning. So it was kind of an insane experience for me to be there. I grew up in Texas inside the United States, and I was landlocked near flat ground only. So to be in a place like Milan and seeing these buildings, which are just breathtaking, and then seeing this cathedral and just sort of being in awe of it, and then hearing that they had to build canals through the entire city to be able to transport that materials, and they started the construction of the cathedral back in like the 1400s, I believe, and they kept going all the way until 1965. Maybe they started it earlier, actually. The total amount of build time, I guess, was 600 years. And the original company that actually was doing the plans and helping actually do the initial construction, they still have an office behind the cathedral, and they use that for extending and maintaining the cathedral even today. So the last part of the cathedral building was actually the front of it, and I wonder if I could pull up a photo of it. I have my own photos, but I'll pull up one from Google Images because the photos on my phone are probably me doing some sort of selfie thing, which is, I think everybody has seen, different things like that before. Okay, let's see. Let me share it. Share screen, Milan Cathedral. There we go. So this is in the center of Milan, and this cathedral they were building for 600 years. I mean, it is gigantic, actually. So when you look at it from just the front, it sort of just looks like a triangle into like a rectangle body there at the bottom. But these doors are the ones that were built very at the last in the 1960s, and they finished. And there's so much detail, and you can even see, like, if you look at the person there at the very front of it, the size wise to even the door is incomprehensible. So beautiful place. And oh, one second. Okay. One of the logistical problems with today was trying to figure out where the laptop charger was. So I'm asking for help here. We're doing it live, right? So we had to start, but I'm on like 6% battery. So we'll just keep going, and then I'll have the battery plug in, and then we're all good. So yeah, so in Milan here and viewing this in person, just absolutely awe-inspiring. And there's so much detail you can't even see inside this photo. One thing I really love is just like the little details, like in this window on the top, you can sort of see almost like the spiraling whirlpool, which is incredible. And at the very top in the back, you can see a golden statue, and that's actually Saint Mary, I believe. So yeah, I mean, it's quite the experience of being here, and also this entire area is just completely built up. Every single store that you can imagine, from the Gucci to the Louis Vuittons to the Pradas and all that stuff, they're all right here in this area. Including, there's a building right behind the cathedral, right in front, that actually has a big sign on it that says Gucci. And I don't personally have any Prada, Gucci, Louis Vuitton items, but it still was pretty cool to see, because of just how intricate the designs are of both the architecture, but also it makes complete sense of why that would transition towards fashion. And according to Vincenzo, a lot of the software development side of that too, there's a whole community being built very strongly out of Milan and other areas, probably off the back end of doing such interesting, cool work for so long, and then just finding a new medium to sort of explore that in a lot of detail. So yeah, so then moving on down the list from Milan. Oh, it looks like I got my charger here. Just put that in. Have this. Oh, it's not very long. Okay. Can you help find the extension cord? Thank you. Okay. Well, hey, people in the chat. Almir, good to see you. Vincenzo. 1386 to 1965. There we go. So if you were wondering how long it took them to build this, now you know. It's something that I believe the thing that spoke to me the most about it was the idea that the construction started and they never even got to see 10% of it. So just imagine like the long-term thinking required to put something together and start designing something that you can't even see 10% of the completion. And you don't know technically if it's even going to be done, right? I feel like that caused a lot of conversations about, what are we doing today, and how that is more of a short-sighted, and we need that instant gratification, that instant result. And those things are, oftentimes can be at odds. Any Milan or international games? I actually was able to go see FC Barcelona versus Paris, and that game was amazing. The part of that game that was crazy was just the fact that I was in Barcelona. I've always wanted to see a European football match, but I've never had the opportunity to actually do it. And so, let me see. I've got the plug. Yes. Okay, we're good. And then the power goes out. Aha, we have life. I'll just put this across. You know what? I'll put it in my lap. And if I get set on fire, it's more content, right? So moving on down. Yeah, so the game was FC Barcelona versus Paris. It was my first time seeing a football match at that level. The problem, though, is that Barcelona lost, and they lost in a pretty devastating fashion. So at first, they scored within like 5 minutes. So imagine game starts, they push across. Unfortunately, I was trying to find my seat. I couldn't figure out where I was at, because the way that, I know US sporting events, and at US sporting events, they have, a couple of entrances, but you can enter anywhere you want and then walk around the entire stadium into the section that you're in. But I guess in Europe, I don't know if it's everywhere, but definitely with Barcelona, you definitely can't do that. So then what ends up happening is that I had to go around the stadium trying to find a specific door for like, I guess like Puerta 21, so like, door 21 or gate 21. And then with that, I was finally allowed access in, and then trying to navigate the, I was on like the not the nosebleeds, because the stands aren't that bad there, but the standing room behind. And the intensity, man, like I've never felt the intensity of like a sporting event like that, where And I talked to the team from Europe, from Serverless Guru, and they were telling me that it's like sporting events, football especially, it's like religion is how they said it. And I think that's a perfect way to sort of describe it. So yeah, I was amazed by it. I was intimidated at different parts. I was scared at different parts. I was yelling boo at the refs, because I grew up in Texas. All we did is, football, American football, soccer, etc. I remember I have memories of my dad getting thrown out of my soccer games, strictly because the situation that happened. So imagine that it's an intramural, so it's men and women playing together on the same field. And then it's like a summer league. It doesn't matter. No one cares. No one should care. But my dad was on the sidelines. He saw this bad call get made. And so he starts like raising hell to the referee and like yelling. It's just like, that's the wrong play. You shouldn't, that's the wrong call, this stuff, and they throw him out, And so I was sitting there at I think 14 or something, just watching my dad get thrown out of a game and security potentially getting called to help escort him out. So I'm very hyper aware of how intense things can get, and exactly, as Jonathan's saying here, free my dad. He's been locked up for quite a bit. This is we're going on 15 years now. Let's see. The laptop is alive. Yes, we figured it out. It took only one software engineer to figure out how to plug the laptop in. That's good. Hey Mario, good to see you. Doing it for the content, exactly. I don't see a problem. Yeah. To be honest, if the laptop would have died, it would have been a very short stream. So maybe that actually would have been a benefit to anybody watching. They're like, all right, we're out of here sooner, I had my coffee. If I was standing up and this was a more of a stand-up sort of situation, maybe I should try that next time. I'll see how long I can stand and talk. Maybe it'll last, 15 minutes or actually last night I got some good news about some of the stuff happening at Serverless Guru, which I've been working on in the background. And then, I was told, go grab a beer, have a good time. And I went and ran 10 miles. I went and ran 10 miles in the wrong shoes with my dog. And it didn't start off that way. I was like, oh, I'm just going to go walk. And then I just went down the street. I was walking and I was like, maybe I'll jog. And then fast forward, the total walking distance, if you're going to walk it, was like an hour and 50 minutes to get there. And then an hour and 50 minutes back. So it was almost like a 4-hour thing, but I obviously I was jogging, so it was a bit better. But my legs are destroyed this morning and my feet are destroyed this morning. But luckily we're just sitting, so no big deal. Hey, good to see you, man. Doing good. I've got my red cup of coffee here. I've got a lot of people in the over here in the community chiming in. So hope you're doing good too. And let's see. Barca is from the team. They were, yeah. I actually had a good conversation with the taxi driver about this, and he was talking about how a lot of the key players have moved, but Messi as well, right? So he's now at Miami. So they've lost a lot of key players, which is kind of interesting. Because I was there, I thought I don't know if you all watch any of the reaction videos on YouTube and you see people react to stuff, but the second that the game was done and the next morning I woke up and I went on YouTube, and because my algorithm was completely switched to Barcelona, the only thing that was showing was the results and the devastation of this loss to Paris. So I went through and I watched, they have interesting live streams in Europe. I've never seen this format before, but they had in the same room, they had the Paris diehard fans and they had the Barcelona diehard fans. And then the cameraman would basically switch to all of them in the worst moments. So if Barcelona got scored on and it was devastating, the camera would switch to the Barcelona diehard fans, and then they were just basically on the floor, And so by the very end of it, because I think the end result was 4-1 or something. So by the fourth goal that happened, the camera switched to the woman that was there, and I think she like actually like she like screamed out. It was kind of like it was just like this level of frustration of just like what is happening, you know? And yeah, their defense was just getting beat up all over the place, to be honest. But I got a cool I got one of the what do you even call it? I got one of the things. The scarves. There it is. I live in a tropical climate, so I have no idea how to call winter gear anymore. But represent the serverless guru zip up hoodie here. So if anybody's in the chat ever looking for a job and a zip up hoodie ends up sealing the deal for you, there you go. Real football factory US edition. Yeah. Yeah, we just apply the same concepts of American football like intensity over, and it's just a bunch of like, you know, people getting drunk and yelling at the refs. What I thought was interesting as well at this game was that there was no alcohol, which I guess makes sense. But also, I got there and I was like, the first thing I was like, okay, I'm gonna drink a beer. I didn't actually drink at all leading up to the game because I was like, I don't want to drink before the game. I want to get a beer. I want to watch the game. I want to drink a beer. I just want to like, you know, have that full experience. And then I got there and they're like, there's no alcohol. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then they told me they have like the 0% alcohol. So I ended up drinking that. And it you know, it gave me like the feeling as if I was drinking beer, but you know, I didn't get that full rounded experience. So whoever ruined that in Europe ruined the idea of drinking alcohol at a sporting game, you know? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, in Brazil, there we go. See, I was waiting for the Brazil team to come on and say, you know, we need to go to a real soccer game. Sorry, Europeans. The Brazil team, man, it goes crazy in Brazil. And also, I remember driving through and seeing the different like local. I think one of them, like the entire street was like painted. I think you took us over there, Will, and it was like the local rivalries are like crazy. Real fans smuggle alcohol. Well, there you go. You just outed yourself, Vincenzo. So if there's any allegedly, there you go. If there's any oh, this was another part that was interesting about that game was there was full SWAT, like SWAT level police on the railing above where I was at, and they were holding like AR-15s with like silencers on it, and they were completely like they had a mask on like this, and it was like I was like, man, it's like I hope nothing happens, but if something does, I mean, like these guys are like fully, these are like military level, you know, people up here. So let's see, Corinthians. Okay, I'm probably saying that wrong. I don't know if I'm pronouncing the Portuguese or the Portuguese pronunciation of it. Corinthians. Corinthians. Hey, Lucas. Thanks for joining in. Good to see you. Hey, Madison. Good morning. I believe Madison is Madison from our team, and she's an awesome graphic designer. And, you know, so if you like this type of design, I would show you my back, but it's, you know, we're back, you know, it's on the back side of this. All of our stickers, everything you can imagine, all designed by Madison from our side. So really awesome stuff. Ah, here we go. Yes. As you can see here, this is our serverless mage. So we have this idea, I'll just link to this side. So you have this idea of this this graphic is basically you have the Lambda logo right there as the middle piece. You have a staff, and you have these sneakers. So this is kind of interesting. So I don't know if I can control taking that off real quick. How do I do that? Oh, there it goes. Okay, let me actually grab something that's interesting. I'll try not to trip on all my cables. Let's see. There we go. Almost went off the side. So for those who don't know, I worked at Nike and I was in the innovation engineering department in Beaverton, Oregon. And I was there for just over a year, roughly. And it was my first like experience of working at a big company doing software development. And it was pretty amazing because the cool thing about Nike when I got there was just I was completely surrounded by all of these people that are at the top of the field. right? So people that have released iOS apps, and they had 5 number one iOS apps, like the person that made the drum app and the guitar app and all those different instruments, that person was working inside of that innovation engineering department. And so you can imagine, like, being new in my career, I was so overwhelmed. But the part that they always ask when you are like in the job interview process is the question of why Nike. And at this time, I hadn't read Shoe Dog because it hadn't been released yet. I ended up reading it after I had already left Nike. But for me, growing up and playing soccer in the United States and just being surrounded by sport and knowing the history of Nike, it was like pretty special to be there in person. And I had a very strong why for myself of why I wanted to be there, because I wanted to build my career. I wanted to be around the best in the industry, and I wanted to be around people that are creatively thinking about the future and trying to improve all of these different aspects, like endlessly, right? And so then fast forward, we get, serverless guru going, all that stuff. I don't know who put up the thing. Can you put that back up of the design? So as you look here on the shoes, specifically the shoes, there's not a Nike symbol because obviously we didn't, we can't do that. But I do have the physical shoe. So now if you take it off, please, I've got the shoe here, and these are them. So these are the Nike shoes that we got. And as you can see here on this end, it says Beaverton, Oregon. So I was at their this is like an amazing thing that we did back in. So really early on into Serverless Guru, we started sponsoring events, and the event that we were sponsoring was in New York City. And it was my first time actually meeting Jonathan in person, and we had a few other people from the team there as well. And the idea was, you know what, let's do something special, right? This is the first real event that we've had. Like, we're sponsoring the serverless days, I think it was, in New York City. Jeremy Daly, if y'all are familiar, he was presenting as well. And I got to kind of meet Jeremy's family very informally as well at that event. And we were like, okay, this is the first event, let's do something cool. And we went to the shoe shop, to this Foot Locker, I believe, and got like a pair of Nikes. And they had just come in, and we went and we bought I think we bought 5 pairs of these shoes. And I haven't really seen anybody wearing these before. Still, I haven't really seen anybody like wearing these, but they're awesome. I don't wear them either. I just have them inside of a shelf, and I just look at them sometimes. But I think that it wasn't intended, but these are so perfect because the Beaverton, Oregon, the story of my own career, the color pattern, and how that ended up working into the design. So now if you show the design again, maybe I can put it side by side. Maybe here. Wait, do you have whoever put the design up? There we go. See? So if you look at the color details of the shoes, the whole reason why, even to the smallest detail of why the shoes are the way that they look, it's because of the story of Serverless Guru. And I think that that's pretty special. So that's kind of a small little detail, which, probably no one is going to recognize this off the bat because no one sees people walking around in these shoes from our team. However, that's the origin story of that, which is pretty awesome. And there we go. Yes. So as you see here, more details here. So we got the rolled jeans. We've got the Nike shoes on here. These are Nike Air. I think these are Air Maxes. Yeah, Air Max. Yeah, so it says Air Max Run Club shoes manufactured to the exact specifications of champion sneakerheads throughout the world, inspired by the first Nike Run Club in Eugene, Oregon. So what I would say to that end as well, do I have that book? I don't think I have that book. I think I gave it to somebody to read. One of my favorite books, which is, probably pretty obvious, it's called Shoe Dog. So if you haven't read Shoe Dog and you're interested in reading something about like the history of Nike, this is the one for you. So let me open image in new tab, screen share. There we go. Okay. So a memoir by the creator of Nike, and he talks about his story, and it's a really interesting, special book, especially for me when I was reading it, because I was actually in Portland, Oregon, and that's where a lot of the story takes place, in Portland, Oregon, in Eugene, Oregon, and also in Beaverton, where the world headquarters is for Nike. And so by world headquarters, what do I mean? We're talking like a pond and a world-class like Olympic-sized swimming pools, full soccer fields, rock climbing gyms, full gyms, huge running tracks, like everything that you can imagine, including all the material design and all the science and design teams and all that stuff, all inside of one campus, and they continue to keep adding to it. So it's pretty amazing. So if you ever interested about what does that actually look like and how interesting can it get when you're making like a campus for people working, the Nike campus is super cool. So this book, it starts off, and I won't ruin it, but I'll just tell you where it starts off. It's very early life for Phil Knight, and Phil Knight is the founder of Nike. So it starts off early life. He's in Oregon. He's trying to figure out his life, and he doesn't know where to go. The interesting part is that he has an idea. He wants to do something big with his life, but he's not necessarily sure what that's going to turn into. He's had ideas and things already previously around shoes and selling and so on, but it hasn't fully materialized at all. And he's only like 20, like in his early 20s, like 23, 24. When I actually read the book, I was also like 24. So it was, it added like this extra element of hearing him running through the streets in Portland, and it's rainy. And then also it's like, I could just like fully immersed inside this book. But as it keeps going through it, you learn about the origin of Nike, how it actually started. You learn about how it scales out, the problem that they run into, Japanese manufacturing of shoes, and how the different culture clashes take place. And the whole thing is just insanely interesting. And then also how Nike actually became different, and how they actually produce shoes and thought about the athletic space. So like the pattern underneath the shoes, and why it's a sort of like a waffle cone sort of thing, right? Or like a waffle. So there's a whole history for why this is there. And he sort of goes into that and the specific people that helped sort of build that. From the small office or the back of the car when they were selling the shoes, all the way into the small office. And then as it kept expanding out. And yeah, so highly recommend. I think normally we have some sort of book recommendation. So the book recommendation today is Shoe Dog, the memoir by Phil Knight about Nike. And as Mirsad said here, signing MJ helped. The interesting thing about that is and I know there was a movie, I think on Netflix or something. I really didn't like it, to be honest. I didn't think it was that well done. However, because it didn't get into the after effect, right? Like I think that the movie's called like Jordan or something, but it didn't really show him because they didn't want to put like a person's face that's not him. I think they had to navigate a lot of tricky environments to make that short movie. What I'll say though is that the story of signing Michael Jordan, I believe, is inside of that book. And if it's not inside of that book and you guys are not familiar with that, sounds like Mirsad definitely is. I would assume most people are. Nike didn't have the budget to basically spend, at the time when people were starting to sponsor athletes, it was still a pretty new concept. And they only had like $500,000 of budget or something. And I believe that was the number. And what they needed to do traditionally was split that money across many different athletes, where each athlete only gets a little bit, right? And this is like almost like how did the superstardom sort of happen with basketball and sport in general? I think of a lot of it comes back to Michael Jordan and the decisions that were made at Nike to basically say, you know what, we're going to use all of our budget on one person who's just coming out of college. And that story is from the movie as well. Okay, thank you, Andres. So yeah, so the usage of the budget all on the one player and the difference of that, pretty insane, pretty amazing. And the foresight to see that and do it, the part that I wish they would make the movie about, like a little expanded on, is what came after, right? Because we all know how like Jordan changed so many different parts of almost every industry, but especially in basketball and in shoes, and the global expansion of that, and how they were just selling like hotcakes. And there's a whole other side of Nike as well, which is very interesting, which I'm sure people will write on later, which is how the unique drops happen and how they've been able to create such a level of demand by controlling the supply of the shoes. So I don't think there's a lot of stuff on that. I've got more things in here that I can't talk about that, but it's pretty cool. There we go. From ground Nike shoes to journey in air is amazing. Yeah, 100%. With AWS already hosting Thursday Night Football, how deep do you think the relationship between athletics and serverless will be? Interesting. Well, I definitely have seen that. I believe ESPN is already running AWS. I believe Formula One as well. If you're not familiar with the Talking Serverless podcast, I interviewed I think it was the VP of engineering of Formula One. Let me see if I can find that. VP of engineering, Formula One. And it was the Talking Serverless podcast. So they're already very much leveraging. Okay, I'll let somebody else eventually help find that. But they're already leveraging serverless across the websites and things like this. But now in terms of like real-time streaming, and I think you run into some issues with some of the like core components for allowing for that high traffic throughput in real time. I think Mohammed from Serverless Guru, when we were in reInvent, we were looking at the car, the Formula One car, because now AWS adds like a Formula One car into like every event, which is awesome. And the amount of real-time streaming of those metrics and everything coming off the car back to the computers that the crews are looking at and so on, that's probably really difficult to accomplish with serverless currently, I would imagine. I haven't worked on such a high traffic system like that where we're talking like millions of events per second or something happening. However, all of the supporting systems that are happening in the background, the reformatting of data, the aggregation, the sorting of it, everything like this, that definitely fits like a serverless use case really well. So, and this is kind of how I've modified the way that I speak about serverless recently, is I've started to talk about serverless as, even if I talk to somebody that's doing Kubernetes workloads, the way that I'm thinking about it now is, even if you're running Kubernetes and even if you're already committed to that path, serverless can still fit, because what are we really talking about? We're talking about very low touch connections in the background to make the ability to build these supporting systems easy, right? So even if you're running Kubernetes for your main applications, you could still have some Lambdas in the background where the Kubernetes cluster, there's an application running. In the application, it uploads a photo into S3. And it's like, yes, you could pull that down through your Kubernetes cluster and so on, and then work with it, or you could just trigger a Lambda function, right? So I think the way that I'm starting to introduce the nuance and how I speak about serverless is that it fits every use case, or sorry, not every use case. It fits every company. No matter what company you are, you're going to have some things that are running in the background that maybe don't need to have that same level of crazy high throughput traffic. And this is only how I speak when I'm speaking to people that maybe have a very strong opinion about serverless. I don't know if y'all have had the experience where you talk about serverless and then somebody walks up to you and they tell you what serverless means or whatever. And so for people that start a conversation like that with me, normally how I try to mix in the nuance there now is that it still can fit, and it's just a matter of what you care about, right? So if you're going to isolate these background processing jobs, and you're going to try to make those as simple as possible. And through that conversation, actually, it was a specific conversation at the AWS Summit in London when I was traveling through Europe. He told me that they were running Kubernetes, but they were using Java, and then it was all JVM based like applications they're using. I think it was Spring Boot. And then he had basically told me, yeah, we tried to use serverless, but it was super slow for Java, and on and on. And then I was like, yeah, Java, JVM, all that stuff. There is a cold start time, but once the cold start is passed, the Java-based Lambdas actually perform pretty fast, in comparison, faster than other Node.js or Python-based Lambdas. However, what he basically said was that, yes, we found that out and we got kind of discouraged by it. And I was like, oh, okay, so do you have any Lambda usage now? And he's like, yeah, well, we have some Python Lambdas. And I was like, yeah, exactly, right? So even though you ran into the issue with the Java-based Lambdas, you're still leveraging Python-based Lambdas. And the reason why you're doing that is because it accomplishes something real. Otherwise, you would never introduce that into your tech stack. So that's the way I'm sort of talking about it now. Allowing them to sort of describe what their current situation is. And then from there, trying to then map that to even like the smallest case, because we're all starting from different starting points, right? And so if you were a startup and you were starting today and you had serverless knowledge, I think all of us would probably lean towards serverless first. However, if you're a large company and all of your stuff is Java or C#, .NET, et cetera, and you don't have that internal knowledge, well, then I'm going to change the way that I speak about it. Instead of replacing or re-architecting or throwing things away or modifying the programming language and on, it's going to be, well, let's just take this one piece over here that's in this tiny little box. Let's optimize that one piece and not think about the rest of this. And then I might even say, we may never even touch it, right? But I know that like once they see it and they can see how efficient it is and how easy it is to reconstruct, then it gives us the platform to be able to speak about that to additional use cases across their entire system. So back to this, AWS already hosting Thursday Night Football. How deep do you think the relationship will be between athletics and serverless? I think it's going to go really deep. The reason why, another point to this is the fully managed nature of running serverless workloads. I think for companies that don't care about being a server or container orchestration company, they care about delivering a good experience to the customer. I think that they're going to be the ones that are innovating the fastest on doing that, because it takes the focus away from trying to do all this other things to make the system work. And instead, they can focus all that attention onto expanding out the experience for customers. So ESPN, Formula One, now the Thursday Night Football, I think it's just going to continue to keep going in that direction. And I think it's great as well for all of us that are in the serverless industry, because all of the people that, a lot of people that watch Thursday Night Football, who are they? They're executives at different companies. They're going to see that. They're going to be interested by it. They're going to see AWS is helping host it. They're already probably talking internally, if they haven't already, about moving from on-prem to cloud, or maybe they're already in cloud and they're trying to optimize it. And so I think those cases where it's very public and where it's very out there what they're doing on the technology side, and it's not sort of like for instance, like example, the Lego story. Sheen Bristles has been presenting the Lego adoption of serverless for a long time, and it's very powerful. However, I don't know if it necessarily penetrates the same way like a Thursday Night Football or like ESPN or Formula One would to like the broader market, right? And I think that's where it's kind of interesting. It's like the initial layers of like serverless adoption and these stories, and then now seeing like these companies that sort of touch every part of society adopting serverless, adopting AWS. I think it's going to just keep pushing us forward 100%. Okay, this is the episode with Vasilios, and he is running a lot of the Formula One stuff. In the past, he was. I don't know what he's doing today. Shout out to him. It was a great conversation. If you're interested about hearing from him on how Formula One and Formula Two have been using serverless and AWS, that's a good place to look. And I think as well, if you didn't know that Formula One and Formula Two were leveraging serverless, then definitely search that on Google, and I'm sure you can find a lot of materials about it. Hey, good morning, Debarshi. Good to see you. I wonder if other companies like Google will take over other sports. I think that's always how it goes, right? It's like it's going to be just a pure competition. At GC, I think here, what do you say? GCP equals baseball. Yeah. So then you end up having what Tencent Cloud running like the pink, like Tencent Cloud running like billiards or something, or Tencent Cloud running like swimming competition, or maybe hosting like the skateboarding X Games or something like this, Azure hockey, yeah, on and on. So it's kind of funny, but the cool thing about it is that they're all sort of working towards the same thing, and that competition, I think, is going to be great for all of us. So yeah, it's amazing. Let's see. Other things going on. As I said, I was traveling through Europe. I'm very happy to be back. I got very sick in Florence, and so the idea came up, oh, hey, we're in Milan already. Let's take a 2-hour train ride. Let's go to Florence, this place of wonder and magic and so on. Once I got there, immediately got sick. I was a little bit sick in Milan, and I'm sure Vincenzo could definitely tell when we were eating, and I had to immediately step out. The people demand a leaderboard of the dishes you taste in Europe. Well, I'll just say this. Vincenzo opened my eyes to pineapple pizza. And you would think Italian pizza, no way. Like pineapples on that? I'm joking. No, so the food that we had, I don't even think I could pronounce it. I don't think I can remember specifically Vincenzo, but it was like a bunch of meat, different types, and cheese, and like berry dip as well, and different types of bread. It was super good. I would say felt very similar to like tapas and like appetizers in Spain, where people in Spain, they go to get tapas, and they just like small little dishes that you eat together for conversation, and you're never eating like a full big meal. So that was super good. The pasta in Italy, it completely changed my look of pasta completely. The word I think is al dente, so that specific way of cooking it. Yes, exactly. Similar to a charcuterie board. Yes. But the cuts of the meat and the cheeses and all this stuff, just crazy. And the bread style, it wasn't even, I don't even know how to describe the bread. It wasn't like normal bread. It was something different. It was amazing. The pasta, let's see, I had a bunch of pizza. I think the first thing I did when I got to Italy was just order pizza over and over again. And obviously it's pretty quick to make. I had a really interesting conversation with so get this is like I know sometimes you never want to talk to your Uber driver, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. It depends on the feeling. But I was talking to the Uber driver because I came into Heathrow Airport after visiting Italy and Spain, and I was coming back to London to go to the London Summit, which we sponsored. And as I was in the car, I looked at the hotel, and I got to the airport. I didn't really have it all mapped out yet. So I got to the airport, I looked at the Ubers and looked at the traffic and looked at the trains, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's no way for me to get to the hotel without traveling for like an hour and a half in a car or a train. So I was like, okay, I'm going to eat the cost. I'm going to take the Uber. And the person that was driving me was like he was from Romania. He was like a Olympic speed walker, I think is what they call them, speed walker or walk running, something like this. So Olympic level, he had got like 6th in the military games in India. I don't remember the specific province that they were in. I think it was close to Bangladesh, but he got like 6th in that. And we talked the whole time about his experiences growing up and all these things in Romania and the events that are there. They have these really massive EDM style, huge concerts. So I guess like similar to like an Electric Forest or something like this, but it's called Untold. I think it's Untold Romania. Yes, this is what it is. Okay, so here, let me screen share this too. So this is interesting, completely off topic, but this is a great example of why you should talk to your Uber drivers, because the amount of information they know is just, they have all these crazy, interesting life stories. So this concert called Untold, or this event, it's held inside of this, like we look here, if we look at that. So it's inside of this massive stadium, but also everywhere around it is other concerts. So he said that you can just go into a concert and you can just stay there for the entire day, or you can leave and there's food carts outside and then there's other stuff surrounding it, all these different stages and all different types of music genres. So every big name would be at a thing like this for Untold. And the number I believe he said was 800,000 people. Crazy. So I was thinking about reInvent with AWS reInvent, and I was like, man, this is the biggest thing that I've ever been to, and it was 50,000 people. And then he said for Untold in Romania, and they've been doing it for like 8 years now, 800,000 people go. I mean, just like think about the logistics of that, right? And also all the technology that's required, you know? So one thing I asked them about was how they actually handle payments, because when you're at a big concert like that or 800,000 people, obviously you don't want people walking around with cash. You don't want people managing cash. And so I guess this is pretty common now, maybe more common in Europe than in the States. But you have a bracelet, and then on the bracelet, it has your I guess like your ID or your code or something that then links to the amount of money in your balance. And so you have to go to a place, put money onto the bracelet, and then you can use that all the way around the event. So super cool. But think about housing for 800,000 people, the amount of food that you need, you know? He was saying that they have like hundreds of semis that come in to basically just facilitate all the food and setting up the stage equipment and everything. So if you're ever in Romania and you're looking for an awesome experience with 800,000 other people, the next Untold Festival is coming up on August 8th through the 11th. And it shows here, actually, the attendance, the attendance in 2023 was 420,000 people. So if you were sitting there going, oh, I can imagine what 400,000 people feels like, but I can't imagine what 800,000 people feel like, then, you know, now you know. Give us your best speed walking form. I actually thought about this after I got out of the Uber. I was like, how? Because when I hear it, I'm like, okay, speed walking, you know, it's like, it's like that thing where it's like it sounds deceptively easy. Yeah. So there's a whole thing actually where you have to move it's like there's a movement through your shoulders and then to your hips. And it's like you have to always have one, like your foot on the ground at all times. So I think if you see there, it's like he's having to move like that so he can put his heel down one by one, which is kind of interesting. So that's the most random sport that I could even imagine. I wouldn't have even been able to say that out loud, to be honest. That I was in a car with an Olympic speed walker that got 6th in the military games in India, and his story actually growing up as well was interesting. It was 6 months, or sorry, not 6 months, 10 months of the year, he was at a school in the mountains. So he all the way from I think 13 years old all the way to like into his 20s. It was it was either 10 or 11 months a year with only 1 month off to go back to see his family. The other 10, 11 months was in high altitude for high altitude training, because when he would go and actually do the races, the high altitude training would actually help him be able to have more oxygen and be able to have more endurance, better conditioning when the race started. And he said something like he's walked 100,000 miles or something crazy like this. And it's just like, I can't even imagine it. He said that he would do 100 miles a day, every single day for years. And I guess that's the type of conditioning and training you have to do if you're at an Olympic level in walking or in speed walking or in running or long distance or yeah. I'm sure you have to constantly be working out every single day. Is that Bill Nye? It could be, we haven't seen Bill Nye for a bit, what happened to him? Where's the magic school bus? Is that Bill Nye? I don't know. I haven't seen Bill Nye for a bit. I feel like Bill Nye was magic school bus, right? I feel like when I was growing up in the States, we had the magic school bus that would come on. Was it Bill Nye? Bill Nye, the science guy. I think so. Let's see. No. Yeah, okay. Bill Nye the Science Guy was different, but I think they came on maybe side by side. That's why I'm getting it confused. It was its own show. Okay, there we go. So Miss Frizzle, that's the magic school bus. that's a great show for kids. Definitely will show my kid the Magic School Bus show. And for those who don't know, I don't know. I guess you could look it up if you're interested in some stuff like this. So all the stuff coming up from Google look a little bit gnarly for showing on stream, but let me see. I guess this is okay. Let me show. So this is a great show. I believe they travel around, they learn things. It's very kid friendly. This was the original version, the one with the graphics like that, and the looks like iguana on the head. Oh man, I can see it, and it immediately brings me back to being like 8 years old or something. And then I guess they have a more modern version now, which I don't know. Maybe that's AI generated. I don't know. Interesting. Bill Nye. Yeah, what happened to Bill Nye? He was here. He's still alive, right? I feel like I heard him on a. Yeah, he's 68, still very much alive. Mechanical engineer, science communicator, TV presenter. Bill Nye the Science Guy. And I believe he's very focused on climate change right now. I think so. So if you're interested in that topic, Bill Nye's got some opinions about this. Let's see. Okay, so meeting communities of devs from different countries. So what was that like? Well, I would say I think every time that I meet anybody from Serverless Guru in a different country, the immediate thing that comes to me is, I'm just immensely grateful, obviously, because it really makes everything feel real, right? Because when I'm sitting here, I'm drinking my coffee out of my red cup, and I'm like working off of my laptop. It's like there's such a disconnection between all the things that are taking place, and everybody's like different experience. And being there in person and seeing London, and wow, London is a really well run city. It feels like I don't know if people hate on London. I don't know what the opinions are of the UK or London. But what I'll say from my experience of going there for the first time after traveling and seeing a lot of different places, not like a ton of different places, but I've seen a few different countries now, in different cities. London, the way they mix together the old architecture and they still have the modern architecture mixed in, the way they've updated the traditional concepts such as the red bus and the taxis, and they've made them more modernized, but they haven't lost like the original vision of it. I just love how they go about doing that. And I think that's the part that's unique. I think a lot of times when I see like different cities and how they think about that, or countries, there's sometimes that modern side completely replaces any sort of traditional side. And sometimes the opposite happens. They don't embrace technology or more modern things because of that traditional side. What I really that historical, like history there, right? But what London does, what I thought, and I could totally be wrong, but from walking around the city and looking at the buildings and seeing just the mix between old building and then extremely modern building with all these modern facilities, electric taxis and electric red buses, and everything felt clean. It felt very safe, at least in the parts that I was in. The traffic was horrible. So I'm not going to say anything positive about that, obviously, but there's train systems throughout the entire city. And I actually really like, here we go. Here's a great photo. So this is right at one of the main, it's right in center London, and it's right at, if I could tell you what it is, I'd be very surprised myself. But you can see the red buses there. You can see the old traditional architecture. And I really had it in the back of my head. I was like, oh, when I get to London, I wonder if I'm going to see a red bus, Victoria Station. Yeah, exactly. Wait, Victoria Station. There you go. Yeah. Okay. That's what you're screaming, Jonathan. Okay. Jonathan knew, but I have no idea. So Victoria Station, super cool. Here's one of Daniel Vincenzo at our booth. And you can see there in the background, there's these cardboard boxes, and those are the t-shirts that we stacked up. Shout out to Madison, our designer, who's in here as well, for making such a cool design. The booth itself, we're trying to capture this idea of what is serverless guru and what does serverless guru represent. And what we came to, what we've been working on, it's one of those things you lose it for a bit and then you come back to it later on, is that we're your guide on the journey to cloud excellence, right? So by guiding somebody through the entire adoption journey of serverless, of cloud, of AWS, you end up having this sort of imagery, which is, if you can put it back up, you have this imagery of the serverless guru guiding you through down the path. And that's sort of describing this idea. And then the mage cloth is basically, because what we're doing is, it's magic, right? Like programming is magic. And then also in the background there, you can't really see it too well, but there's a sign. If you look it down towards the bottom corner of the background there, you can see a little sign in the grass. And I believe it says server graveyard. And then you can't fully see it, but the design actually uses like containers, and there's servers, and they're like old and rusty, and it's underneath the ground. So it's a little bit of like, we threw a little bit of shade, at the servers and containers, but it's all in good fun, It's just, we're just trying to have a good time. So yeah, this was an awesome experience. I saw Andres posted podcast a few years ago. Okay, nice. Definitely check that out. If there was a kid show format for serverless development, what would be the first episode? Yeah, there you go. We should make a serverless for kids book, 100%. And then this one, here we go. So the Read Aloud Cloud book by Forrest Brazil. I don't know if I'm saying his last name right, Forrest Brazil. But I love all the stuff that Forrest has done previously. All the comics that he did for Cloud Guru were so cool. And if you guys haven't seen that, definitely look up Forrest Brazil and then look up his art. So, I mean, just the amount of time that it takes to make what he did with the Read Aloud Cloud, because I believe that he does all of his own graphics as well. Read Aloud Cloud. Here we go. I can show it actually on stream real quick. Okay. Read Aloud Cloud, an innocent's guide to the tech inside. That's just so cool. Traveling the cloud, mountains of edge computing, other ISPs, the internet backbone. I learned about this like maybe a decade ago or something, but it was like the first time that I heard that we're running like cables under the ocean. And that's the only reason why we're able to actually have this like communication take place. I was like, what is going on? Like you run cables across the entire ocean floor. It's insane. It's insane to think about, but it's so cool. What else is in here? Industry analyst, cloud forecast. Oh, this is so cool. So if you haven't picked up this book, I definitely don't have this. I haven't read it. But I definitely feel like this is a really good book, both for adults and for kids. But if you're going to try to show your kid of like, what do you do day to day? Maybe that's the perfect book to sort of, give them an idea. And likely, roughly out of that conversation, they're going to probably have more understanding of all this than most adults, right? Because we all use it. We all have cell phones. We all have laptops. We're all interacting with applications constantly, but all the layers that support that underneath, and then all the layers that we don't even interact with as software developers, because we're operating on the layers that are higher, the higher abstraction layers. Whole thing is so cool. And it always brings me back to what Almir said from Serverless Guru, which is he was talking about how we already have robots everywhere, and you already have like magic. If you've ever seen you've ever used a controller for like a little RC car or like a little drone or something, and you're controlling that, how, right? It's not connected. There's no wires. It's just like sending signals back and forth. That is magic, super cool stuff. Well, we're at 10 a.m. and it's been an absolute awesome episode here, and just hanging out with you guys as always. We're doing a new schedule now, so we're going to try to get this every other Friday. So the next Coffee with Ryan externally, because we do one internally as well. So the next internal one for just serverless guru people is going to be on the 10th, and then the external one is going to be on the 17th. So I look forward to seeing all of y'all on the 17th, and hopefully we can keep, talking about all these different concepts and everything else. And it was good seeing you as well, Andres. And I appreciate it. If you guys have any feedback about the format, the topics, if you want to talk about anything, definitely come with everything that you want to talk about and just put it in the comments, and then we can dive into it. So with that, I hope everybody has an amazing month of May. We've made it into May 2024. For anybody that was thinking that we weren't going to make it to May, we've made it to May. And also it's Friday, so happy Friday to everybody, regardless of where you are in the world. Unless you're in New Zealand, I think maybe for New Zealand, it's already Saturday. So, happy Saturday to you. And I hope all of y'all have great weekends and have a good time with your friends, family, and so on. And with that, we'll come to a close. Until next time, this has been Ryan. This has been Coffee with Ryan. And I'll see you guys later. Okay. Bye, everybody.